Hello Nerdy Jurors, my name is Maria Park and this is Approach the Nerd, the show that takes your favorite nerd content and puts it on trial. And this week's defendant is the Charmed Reboot. And the accusation is a Charmed Reboot better than the original Charmed. Take a seat because court is in session right now. So from the moment the Charmed Reboot series was announced, it has been surrounded in controversy. Some fans of the original series have had problems with everything from the original cast not returning to the series to being referred to as a socially woke drama that force feeds its politics down fans' throats. This has caused many people to not give the reboot a chance. So today, we're going to decide via a top 10 list if the Charmed Reboot is better than the original. Number 10, the Charmed Ones. So in the original Charmed series, the sisters were older sister Prue, middle sister Piper, and youngest sister Phoebe Hallowell. Paige Matthews, the girl's half-sister, would arrive later to replace Prue after she sacrifices herself to save her sisters. In the reboot Charmed series, Macy Vaughn is the oldest. Her character is a sort of hybrid between Prue and Paige. She is responsible and level-headed like Prue, but also lonely and often feels out of place like Paige, most likely due to not being raised with her sisters. However, unlike Paige, she was raised by her biological father and not adopted. Next in line is Melanie Vera. Her character is Piper's counterpart, though she does possess some of Phoebe's attributes as well. Mel was once thought to be the oldest sister, but was demoted to middle child when Macy arrived. Unlike Piper, who was the middle child, promoted to eldest when Prue dies and Paige arrives. And last we have the youngest sister, Margarita, or Maggie for short, Vera. She is the counterpart for Phoebe. Maggie is into fashion and having a good time. She's pledging a sorority during most of the season, which drives her feminist sister Mel crazy. Their fights are very reminiscent of Prue and Phoebe in the original Charmed. Ironically though, Maggie also plays a little of Piper's role as the family mediator between Macy and Mel at times. Number 9, their powers. When it comes to their powers, the girls of both series have a lot in common, but there are also some notable differences. Macy, like Prue and Paige, has the power of telekinesis, but she's also a half-demon due to a deal her mother made when she was a baby and died. So she possesses demonic powers such as demonic translation, evil sight, and pain resistance. This is the polar opposite of Paige, who is a half-Whitelighter. When she cast the Sacred Flame Extraction spell to extract the source, she called upon the power of the goddess of space, Anu. Mel, like her counterpart Piper, can freeze time. But unlike Piper, who would eventually go on to blow things up, Mel is able to manipulate all aspects of time, aging potions that have just been made, for example, and accelerating healing time for wounds. She also uses special daggers and a bracelet gifted by her mother to speed up her attacks. When she cast the Sacred Flame Extraction spell, she called upon the power of the goddess of time, Mamitu. And then there's Maggie, an empath and mind reader, whereas Phoebe had the power of premonition. Both learn to use their powers as active abilities, but Maggie is able to force push her emotions and use them as weapons, similar to Phoebe's gaining levitation and empathic sync replication power, yet Maggie gets her abilities upgraded pretty early on in the series. She was also gifted a staff by her mother to amplify her empath powers and use it to hurt demons. And when she casts the Sacred Flame Extraction spell, she calls upon the power of the goddess of emotion, Inanna. Both series are very impressive with their use of abilities and powers, but the upgrades that the sisters get in the reboot happened from season 1. So it will be interesting to see where their powers go in the next season and beyond. Number 8, their jobs. Unless your name is Tony Stark or Bruce Wayne, then you still have to worry about the bills. Macy, or Dr. Macy Vaughn, is a very ambitious and driven scientist. A lot like Prue, who goes from being an auction specialist to a photojournalist in this series, and excels at both. Paige, however, jumps jobs, going from a social worker to temp to headmaster of magic school. Mel is a grad student and assistant teacher before she casts a memory spell on her girlfriend that resets her path, and she ends up becoming a bartender for a club that kind of looks a lot like P3. But Piper was an accountant, a chef's assistant, and a nightclub owner. Maggie, like Phoebe eventually does, is a full-time college student. Both characters of their series do major in psychology, but unlike Phoebe, who really doesn't work consistently through a majority of the show, Maggie works as a waitress. Number 7. Their fathers. In the reboot, we learn that Mel is actually the half-sister, which means that at some point after their mother is with Mel's father, Ray, she rekindles things with Macy's dad, Dexter Vaughn, to conceive Maggie. All 3 original series Charm girls had the same father, Victor Bennett. Their half-sister, Paige, was the product of their mother's affair with Whitelighters Sam Walder. Not much is known about Mel's father, Ray, in the reboot so far, but he does seem to be the counterpart to Victor Bennett. Number 6. Their mothers. In the reboot, Macy, Mel, and Maggie's mother is Marisol Vera, a witch with premonition powers and an elder. She was killed by fellow elder Charity in an attempt to stop Marisol from unbinding her daughter's powers and establishing the Charmed Ones. In the original series, Prue, Piper, Phoebe, and Paige's mother is Patty Hallowell, a Warren witch with the power to freeze time like Piper and Mel. She was killed by a water demon. The original Charmed sisters were raised by Patty's mother, Penny Hallowell, a very powerful witch with the power of telekinesis like Prue, Paige, and Macy. Now, we've yet to see any other relatives, Vera or Vaughn, in the reboot series, but we may in season 2. Number 5. Love interests. Now, when we're talking about the love interests of all the sisters on both series, this video can get pretty freaking long. And I don't know if I have enough oxygen for this, but you know what? Here we go. Macy meets and falls in love with Dr. Galvin Burdett, a fellow scientist who worked with her. His grandmother is a Haitian priestess. At the end of the season, Galvin sacrifices himself performing a Haitian spell to save the people that were cursed by the Harbinger's demonic virus. In the original series, Prue lost her love and childhood friend, Detective Andy Trudeau, who also sacrificed himself to save Prue and her sisters. And Paige also lost her love, Agent Kyle Brody, who was killed by the Avatars when he tried to stop them from forming Utopia. The deaths of their boyfriends are a common link for all 3 counterparts. Unfortunately, Prue would die before she's able to have another big love story, so we're gonna have to leave it at Andy. Now, Paige would go on to have many short flings like her sisters, but she would eventually marry parole officer Henry Mitchell and give birth to twin half-human, half-witch girls, as well as adopting a human baby boy that she saves from a Darklighter, naming him Henry Jr. In the reboot series, Mel is a lesbian, and her girlfriend in her original timeline is Detective Nico Hamada. Nico is the counterpart of Detective Andy Trudeau. When Nico is targeted by a demon, Mel and her sisters rewrote time so that Mel and Nico never met. Nico did stay with her fiancé Greta in another city, but unfortunately she never became a detective. Instead, she went on to become a private investigator, which would lead her back into Mel's life. Nico would eventually remember everything, and we see her wearing a protective ring at the end of the season waiting for Mel, who never crosses to meet her. Mel also has a short fling with Jada Shields, a half-witch, half-whitelighter like Paige. Their relationship would end after her group, the Sisters of Arcana, were killed by Charity's sister Fiona, and Jada chose to run. Now, in the original series, Piper has a slew of short romances, but it's the sister's whitelighter Leo that stills her heart. She would go on to marry him and have 3 children. In the reboot, Maggie breaks up with her boyfriend since high school, Brian, early in the series because she couldn't see herself long-term with him. She then meets and falls in love with her sorority head's boyfriend, Parker Kane. Parker is a half-shadow demon and half-human, making him the counterpart to Phoebe's Cambion half-human and half-demon lover, Cole Turner, also known by the demonic world as the legendary demonic assassin, Balthazar. Like Cole, Parker is a candidate to take on the Source. However, his half-human side makes him extremely sick, and his human mother, scientist Dr. Julia Wagner, is working to find a way to destroy his demon side for good. Julia is divorced from Parker's father, Alistair. In the original series, Cole's mother, Elizabeth Turner, was an upper-level demon who gave birth to Cole in 1885. She killed her human husband, Benjamin Turner, a California assemblyman, when he found out that she was a demon. In the reboot, when Macy takes on the Source and the sisters extract the power, Parker decides to leave. Now, it is unknown whether or not he and Maggie will be reunited in season 2, but chances are high this is not the last we've seen of Parker. Unlike Phoebe's marriage to Cole, which ends when he becomes the Source and the sisters are forced to banish him. Whew, that was a lot. Are you tired yet? Haha, so am I. Number 4. They're Whitelighters. In both versions of Charmed, the sisters are guided by angels known as Whitelighters assigned to them by the elders. In the Charmed reboot, the sisters' Whitelighter is Harry Greenwood. In his human life, he was named James Westwell, an actor who was recruited into the British Army where he would later be killed. When he became a Whitelighter, he lost all of his memories, so he didn't remember leaving behind a wife and a son. Harry works at the university in the Women's Studies department, which drives Mel nuts. He is also very protective of the girls, having lost his last charge, Charity's sister Fiona. He is the counterpart for Leo Wyatt in the original Charmed, though unlike Leo, he has no romantic attachment to any of the sisters so far, though some fans have noticed a little chemistry between Harry and Macy, so you never know what happens later down the line. He also lives with the sisters full time, even cooking meals and doing house chores. In the original Charmed, Leo Wyatt was a pre-med doctor and medic in the military. He was married to Lillian Wyatt, but was killed shortly after in an explosion. Leo will be rewarded with being assigned to the Charmed Ones after defeating Dark Lighter Rennick, a White Lighter killer. Leo first came to the sisters as a handyman and watched the sisters for a long time, unlike Harry in the reboot, who revealed himself right away. Leo is also very protective of the sisters, especially his wife Piper. Number 3. The Elders. Another thing that both series have in common are the Elders, which are sort of an oversight group for witches. In the reboot, the Elders are comprised of the oldest and most powerful witches of their era. The interesting thing about them is that they lead normal lives, with jobs ranging from school teachers to entrepreneurs. They hide their faces but don't always wear robes, and they're also a lot darker than the original, having no qualms on killing for the greater good, or framing innocent people to protect magic. In the original series, the Elders, or Founders as they were sometimes called, were promoted Whitelighters and angels. They wore long robes and seemed to exist in another realm, never really venturing outside of it, which implies they did not lead normal lives outside of their elder circle. The Elders were anti-killing, unlike the reboot. In fact, they saw all mortals as innocents to be protected. So the reboot's Elders are definitely hardcore, and not really in a good way. Yet that isn't a problem long in this series. Spoilers. Number 2. Location. The reboot Charmed series takes place in the fictional college town of Hilltown, Michigan, with most scenes taking place inside the Vera house. The house is the same one used in the canceled television series Witches of East End. Michigan is home to a large LGBT community, with East Lansing and Ann Arbor being the first cities in the US to pass LGBT discrimination protections in the 70s. They also have held pride parades since 1986, so Mel being a lesbian and not feeling discriminated against or outed makes sense with a state history like that. Now, the original Charmed series was set in San Francisco, California, with most scenes occurring in Halliwell Manor. Now, the one thing that some people found odd was how little the LGBT community was featured. There were a couple of characters here and there, but nothing really concrete. And for San Francisco, that is very strange, especially with Hillside showing more representation. And that brings us to number 1, The Book of Shadows. The Book of Shadows is the most powerful book in existence and is over 300 years old. In the original series, Melinda Warren, the ancestor of the Halliwells, created the Book of Shadows and passed the book on through the generations. It eventually ended up with Penny Halliwell, who would then pass it down to the Charmed Ones. In the reboot, it's not known where the Book of Shadows came from or how Marisol Vera even obtained it. After her death, she entrusts the book to Harry, who later gives it to the sisters when their powers are unbound. We do see a sketch of Melinda Warren in the book while the sisters were looking through it, which could mean that Melinda is also the Vera's ancestor, or a very clever homage to the original series by the writers. And there you have it, our top 10 reasons why the Charmed reboot is potentially better than the original Charmed. What do you think? Leave us a comment below and let us know. And if you'd like to be signed up for jury duty, hit the subscribe button. And if you'd like to know who's next on the ballot, hit the notification bell. Until next time, I can't wait to see you in Nerd Court. And if you have time, make sure to check out some of our other videos.